Hey everybody, we're back in the cabin, back fresh from ATA.
Yes, we are. We're back. The cabin's put back together. Man, did we have a fun-filled first day. And you want to talk about a buzz.
Oh, there's a buzz in the PSE booth on the shooting lanes. Everybody was expecting this huge announcement coming out, and the first announcement of the day didn't disappoint anybody, I tell you that.
No, it didn't. You know, they came out and announced John Dudley for PSE.
Nock on Nation.
Nock on Nation was joining PSE. Matter of fact, they did something that has never ever been done before. They changed the PSE logo green for Nock on Nation.
You want to do that here? If they can do it, why can't we?
If they can do it, we need to do it.
I can do that.
Oh, make it happen.
There you go. What do you think, man?
I love it.
That looks pretty good.
It looks fantastic. Look at that.
So, I think, other than that, I think we ought to just get to the interview.
You know what? We had a great interview with him, and we sat down with him. He came right down after the announcement. So what better way to start off our ATA interviews than with John Dudley?
So we're with none other John Dudley.
What's up?
Man, knock on. Hey,
Big day.
Welcome to the team, man.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. I don't know. I'm gonna need a few days to decompress, I think, after I get out of here.
Well, you know, you were the second big announcement this morning at 9 o'clock. I mean, it was like, and here we go. And then they brought you out, and they said none other than yourself as being coming onto the PSE team, and they brought Pete up, interviewed you, the guys together, and everything. And what's it feel like to? We just talked about this before we started recording. This cat was in the bag for not just a few days or a week, a few months.
Oh yeah. Well, half a year. I mean, honestly, I was very transparent with everybody. There's been continual knocks on our door, and I've told everybody, like, my contract ends on this time. I'm gonna visit this subject somewhere 6 months prior, and I'll be open ears. But in the same sense, it's not like I'm looking for anywhere to go. And to be perfectly honest, my main vision was that I really wanted to be able to go out and shoot equally for three big brands. And originally my proposal to people was, what if I shot this bow for a month, and then I would shoot brand B for a month, brand C for a month, and then rotate back and really hit those three big brands. And there's a very distinct, like, not interested. And Pete was the only one who said, yeah, I mean, if we can't be 100%, we would love to have 30%, because what you're doing is awesome. And from there, it kind of kept evolving, and I just realized that, this is like way bigger than me. This is something that's the archery community. This is definitely, like, I call it our community. Like, for me, the Nock on Nation is a very loyal group of people that communicate. They become friends. I know a lot of them that are friends through meeting on our platform, go to tax together, go on hunts together, and these are people that would have never met if it weren't for being within our posts. So all those people were on my mind as well. And the bottom line is, Pete came forward and talked about his vision of where he wants PSE to be when he decides to not be involved anymore. I don't think you're ever going to not have him involved, right. But there's going to come a point where Pete's 78. There's going to come a point where there's going to be other people in those leadership roles.
That's right.
And he was very adamant about, I need the right people that are going to help archery grow and help archery move forward. And I think after our podcast together, we both realized there's a lot more synergy between us that neither one of us ever knew about. Just like, where we grew up, where we started, both of them were very close to the same places in Illinois. My first bow was a PSE. The first shop that I worked at was a PSE dealer. I sold a lot of PSEs. A very mutual friend of me and Pete's both. His name was Mike Donovan. He's the one that taught me how to fletch my first arrows.
And put you in a room and fletch them nonstop.
Yeah,
And didn't pay you, by the way.
for free.
Yeah,
we heard that story.
He would probably still do the same. You know, if he met me now, he'd probably still have me do his for free.
But something you said there, though, you said, well, don't I get paid for this? And he said, the experience you're getting now is invaluable.
Put a price tag.
Or you can't put a price tag on it. Yeah. But I mean, we think about.
I tried telling our employees that.
Yeah, they don't.
That worked out for you.
It didn't work.
But
I don't know why.
you're now doing. You're imparting that knowledge to other people, new shooters, new archers, getting people involved. I mean, that speaks volumes because there's so many people out there that want to give information, but they want a little something for it. And you and Pete, like you said, you guys, the synergy there, it's amazing how similar it is.
Yeah, there's certainly going to be people that think this was a very monetary move, and the reality is, yeah, of course there takes finances to be able to offer free information. But the reality is I had turned down more for 9 years of where I was before. I had continually had great offers and told them that, hey, there's better offers out there, but my loyalty's here, my loyalty's here. And it finally got to the point where I had to give them a heads up and be like, at the end of this one, I just need you to know, I need to listen to all things because there's certain things that I really feel like I want to do. One of them being bringing my ideas to a floor and not just be like a limb graphic. And some of those things were not options at other places. And whereas Pete, being a design guy, you know, his mind never stopped. He never stops talking about things that he could do this, or we should try to do this, or what if we do this? So I think for him to be able to say, hey, I've got this awesome engineering team, they'll be like, you got the keys to walk in you can go in the engineering lab anytime you want and say, can we try this? And that's a pretty awesome, I guess, responsibility that I'm going to hold is, you know, if I feel like there's something that our community would really love to see in the archery world, maybe it doesn't come to life, but we can certainly try it.
You can play with it and experiment with it and maybe push that envelope a little further. You know, you got the bow right here.
Yep.
The first thing I noticed and I was like, duh, why haven't we done this sooner? Is the kickstand. I mean, that is so cool.
You know what's crazy is, for me, I don't know how many times I've seen, just so everyone out there is looking, this is, I've always wanted to be able to just drill and tap a riser with the correct angles for that system to where you could essentially have a carbon rod to where you would screw it into the riser and be able to, you know, have a kickstand just like this, right? For this one, what I did was put a female insert on one of the shafts, so as you unscrew both of these, you can screw one into the other one and then load that into your quiver. And if you're in a ground blind situation, you got it. If you're going to the range to practice, you got it. You know, when you hit this, there's not like extra vibration. It's a pretty stiff shaft. I use a 260 spine shaft.
That was going to be my question about issues with vibration at all.
I was surprised. I went and shot it with the kickstand first, and then, to be honest with you, every time I've shot this bow, and there was one generation before this, and this is like hats off to the engineering team, I got a bow and I literally shot it for a day, and it had like a wish list. I literally told them, like, I don't think you guys can get a bow together by the ATA. If you did, these are like 10 little things that I think I would need to be able to talk about. I like perfect 10, so for me, I wanted 10 things. A couple of them are emblems, but I did want 10 things, and literally a day after New Year's, I had a bow, and I was able to get on the phone, say, hey, during initial setup, here's a few tweaks I think we need to make. And they're like, okay, well, tell us now, because we're going to have bows at the show. And literally this emblem right here, we stuck on this bow minutes before we walked out. They came next day air from wherever they get them from.
Rush them here now.
Yeah.
Another thing you did is, you talked about this when they introduced you, was the color of the bow.
Yeah, no surprise, green.
You know, you went with the green, and then you went, if I can do this, there's the graphics.
Oh yeah, those are sharp.
That is slick.
You know, and another thing you did with this was you made them drill 2 holes for the burger button.
Yeah. A secondary burger button hole for me for rest lockdown on the riser is totally critical. I was pretty adamant about that. You know, there's too many times where you go to bear down on that a little bit, you slightly kick it up, and you know, with a limb-driven style rest where it really needs to be able to go flat to the riser, that's a big thing. And what I did was I actually took a rest and sent it into the team and said, here's the rest here's the rest that I'm using. You know, it needs to be able to tailor this. So the riser has a little bit flatter shelf. So I guess for those of you on that camera,
there you go.
it's a little bit flatter in towards the riser, and then the angle's sharper going up instead of having a slow taper, because when this rest was down previously, one side of the whale tail would be slightly raised, and that's the case on a lot of bows where it doesn't have that type of shelf. So they were able to make that angle a little bit sharper and then build kind of a flat spot for a limb-driven style rest to lay up there. We dished out, and this is one of the first generations, and I just have, you know, a slick piece of Teflon tape there just for quieting it. But the riser is dished out with a trough. The production ones will be a little bit wider than this particular one, but it just lays your arrow within. Everyone has a slightly different left to right setup, right? So we put this through several people and kind of went, who has the extreme left? Who has the extreme right? We need to kind of fit that bill.
So that's why it's wider.
Yeah, we're widening it out a little bit for that. And I think we'll come up with a good process, or maybe an inlay to where that'll have, you know, either the ability to put moleskin on it or maybe a rubber inlay in the future. It's hard to say. You know, we have a lot of room to go forward. This was like me looking at something saying, oh, I know what I'd do if I wanted to make this a little bit better. The other thing was we removed some of the extra sight holes, went to a standard sight height, and what that allowed us to do is make a slight change in the riser to where we could embed the cable rod system into the riser so that it doesn't have the ability to swing. It's positioned in what I think is the sweet spot, just based on, like, if you look here on this camera, you're going to have the perfect clearance for a higher profile vane, but it's not, you know, and it's not out so far to where you're putting extra like torque on the back end of that riser as you draw it back. The other thing that seems to be the biggest hit, and I've always said, like, the ideas where you say that's so stupid, I can't believe I didn't think of it. It seems like those are always like Velcro. You know, you're like, what the hell? Duh, that's a burr. Why didn't I think of that?
Right.
So I took, and I started doing this on my other bows, but I went ahead and drilled out a hole through the yoke splitter here so that you could mount your limb-driven style rest right above the cam, and that does a lot of things. One, you have less material overall. You don't have to worry about a bigger limb clamp down here, or a clamp that isn't specific for this limb. It's way cleaner. It's, you know, it's tucked in tighter, so if you have your external quiver here, you know, and you're loading broadheads, this is kind of tighter to the system, and you don't have to have like the limb, you know, the pressure on the limb as well. And then more importantly, when it comes to like the tunability, you know, limb travel is an important thing with limb-driven style rests. People that, you know, kind of use and abuse their whale tails are ones where the limbs are traveling so far forward that it's pulling, you know, it's just yanking past home base. It's trying to pull it past that because of that limb over travel. So here, you're not having to worry about that over travel from the limb. So it just gives you a really, really clean setup. And honestly, the cam system is very, very user-friendly. I was totally taken away with how user-friendly the Evolve cam system is.
Yes, sir.
As soon as I shot the very first one, I kind of thought to myself, you know, man, this is way under-evaluated. And to be honest with you, the more I looked and worked on the very first bow that I got, the more I started like looking back through the timeline scale and realizing like, oh, wait a minute, that's actually something other people have been chasing. Like, you know, I look back, okay, this model was actually kind of trying to do that same thing, right? So if you kind of look back and without, you know, throwing anyone under the bus, there's always been times in the industry where people will have a very good idea and then everyone tries to figure out, how do I kind of ride that tidal wave without infringing, you know, a patent or whatever? Yep. And certainly this cam system and this limb is obviously, a lot of people went to this years ago. And I think PSE's always been kind of bulletproof on the limbs. The other thing is the process that they have for actually getting the camo on the limbs is super impressive, and the wearability of it is going to be surprising to people. You know, if you're used to standard film dipping and you know, rubbing camo off of your bow parts because of a normal film dip process, like those days are over with this. This is a very bulletproof system with this fusion. It's
and it pops. It's got a pop
it's
to
got
it.
very, and just so everyone knows, like these first ones that are here at the show, they were actually denied for the quality that's going to be expected from Gore to approve this use of the pattern. So they're actually going to get better than what you're seeing on the models here at the show. So I don't know, I'm pretty excited to be able to be here for, I don't know, barely over a week, and UPS and FedEx came to the rescue, and I don't know, we've got a very good start, a good place for our you know, Nock On Nation and bow hunting community to be able to move forward.
Did they give you a time frame that when these will be available out to the dealers?
They're cutting. There's literally, I have a list of about 35 people that I really think we need to get the bows in their hands immediately, just to make sure there isn't anything that I missed. So those are being cut right now, from my understanding. But we have full intentions to have these in stores and ready to go by the end of February. So
wow, that's quick.
Yeah.
Now I noticed we got the Evo. We also saw over there the Stealth, the Carbon Stealth.
Yep.
That's going to be in the Nock On.
Yeah, the Carbon Stealth has kind of been in the background. It's an awesome bow, and if you're a carbon person,
right,
you're gonna love that bow as soon as you pick it up. I know a lot of people that have carbon risers, and as soon as I hand them that, they're just like, whoa. You know, it's the lightest bow you're ever gonna pick up.
For sure.
But even though it's light, and I've shot bows that were light like that before, they normally carry a lot of residual vibration. That bow, it makes people be like, wow. And, you know, I've seen it in shops, and it's 100% made in the U.S. They're actually building those risers in the PSE factory. And that's one of the things that was really impressive too, is just how much of this process is done by the people that are working in Tucson.
Absolutely.
That's a super cool story in itself, because every time a company is being acquired nowadays, as they continually get acquired, it seems like that craftsmanship is starting to leave the country.
Absolutely.
And you know, for these particular products, it's been proven that for bows, the bows need to be made here, and for that type of precision, you need to be able to have that immediate inspection for QC, you know, and especially for something that's like this, you know, something that has synthetic strings on it, you don't want it on a shipping container, you know, being shipped being shipped all the way down here. You really don't. So it was really cool to see how fast this thing came to life. And hats off to everyone at the PSE plant, because they're the ones, if it wasn't being done in there, if those limbs were getting made by a glass company out west, and then say you guys had to get the paint sent out to an anodizer and get the paint. Yeah, every bit of that is like lag period. So for them to be able to implement this that fast to the market, it's just proof that they have full access and ability to manufacture in Tucson. So it's going to be an exciting time, and where we go from here is just really up to the followers to say where we need to go.
Well, kind of shifting gears a little bit, stepping back maybe to that synergy of what you and Pete had together and imparting information to people. I mean, I've watched some of the videos that you put out there. Something as basic as your archery 101 of how to do drawing, proper grip, things of that nature to get people that are just coming into archery. Talk a little bit about that and where you want to take things for people coming into archery and for us who have been shooting for a while.
Well, I feel like I did the best I could with what we've put forward for content through Nock on Archery. At the beginning, I had a lot of people that were saying I was spending too much time on it. They didn't want that much involvement from a TV show aspect. They're like, we need less of that, more B-roll, And then eventually they started to realize, okay, this guy's like got a following here on his education side. So they wanted more of that in there, but at that point it was almost too late. Like I had made up my mind that TV is not where this is an expense, and all this expense does is it takes away from the consumers to be able to have a full experience from someone that that they're watching. So I was able to get out of that world and not have to worry about those types of expenses, and honestly step back and take much smaller paychecks than most of the hunting personalities and stuff, but be able to put it out there and try to do it for free. So I feel like I did the best I could with videos and so forth, but as we've been able to grow, the quality of what we put out has continually gotten better. And I think now looking back, there's a lot of things I wish I would have filled some gaps, and I think I wish I would have said a little bit different. So I really want to take this year and backtrack and start to just update that content and maybe come in and go through these subject matters with maybe people that are there. If I have a certain person come in for their first bow, do a better job of capturing that and letting people see the learning mistakes and the processes, and because for me, I just continually take for granted some of these little things because I don't realize, to a beginner, they don't know what that is, and unless they ask the question, it seems like sometimes I just overlook it as much as I try to dumb things down. A lot of the reason why I talk a little bit more methodical on the podcast is because I'm envisioning people trying to follow along with this technical information, but there's no video, there's no.
You gotta visualize it in your head. You have to paint the picture.
And that's one thing I want to do too. Is I really want to have the ability and the finances to be able to put together a podcast where it is a video podcast, and I can talk about this, that, and everything in between. I want to be able to do that. So all of this is going to make that possible, and just really give us the ability to bring forward more for less, for our followers anyway.
All right. Well, so talking about the bows, talking about the education, let's dive just briefly a little bit maybe into the hunting side. And before the show started, we talked about this a little bit about you taking servicemen out or working with them a little bit. Your buddy, like I said, we alluded to the 9/11 elk.
Yeah, yep,
and,
Andy, yep.
And you've got a spot in your heart for the servicemen, and I know Pete does too, and we do too. It's just, I think that's an arena that maybe needs a little more attention.
Well, it's definitely going to have it now because a big part of this initiative with PSE is Black Rifle is going to be making a big investment with me. They just came in as one of the headline sponsors for the Total Archery Challenge. I got some of the black rifle guys shooting bows about a year ago, and they were out, like, honestly, I think some of them shot bows more than black rifles over the last year. And, you know, and honestly, every like military person that I've had shoot a bow, as soon as they've like made their first shot, they're like, that is so much quieter. Right? You know, no ear pro.
You don't have to worry.
It's a quiet thing.
Yeah. So together with them, certainly we're going to try to get into some military bases. We're going to try to bring some programs forward to where we're going to be able to allow active troops to be able to have access to this. These are all initiatives that are in the future and down the road, and something that I think we need to do. Because
So you're going to be showing up at some Total Archery Challenges?
yes, yep, yeah. There's Nock On will be officially at 5 TAC events, so it'll be at Pennsylvania, San Antonio, Colorado, Big Sky, and Park City.
Oh, we're from Michigan.
We're from
Sorry.
Michigan. It's like,
I have to pick and choose, man.
Yeah.
Some of you guys overlap bear hunts.
Yeah.
oh, we're sorry.
Well, see, at that time in Michigan, when is the challenge? That's July.
It was July.
Oh, it's June 14th because
That's my birthday. That was.
Well,
that
see,
was
for your birthday,
yeah,
come to Michigan.
we'll have a party. My son's
was
graduating
going to.
college, so but we're going to back it up.
But that's awesome. Giving back,
Yeah.
you know, and this with PSE helping that happen is awesome, I think.
Absolutely. You know, in the Total Archery Challenge, speaking of it, just briefly, and we'll let you go.
Yep.
Last year, Danny and I, we started getting in exercise and getting it out, ready for the outdoor season.
Yep.
That seems to be a big push right now. And when we shot TAC,
Yep.
I got done. I was a little winded. Well, did an extreme hunt for Michigan this
Yep.
year. Made such a huge difference. Talk a little bit about, you know, I listened to you and Joe Rogan talk about that, about hiking up the mountains, carrying your pack, carrying your bow, all of a sudden dropping that heart rate, making that shot. How important is that physical side to the archery world?
Well, yeah, I mean, all the way back to target archery, you know, I've been at coaching summits where I've been there, you know, coaching with other high-level coaches, and we're having these coaching summits to, you know, developmental countries, and there's people that are very specific on learning to train their athletes to be able to control their heart rate, and exercise is a big part of that. You know, if you're not used to a heart rate spike, your ability to lower that thing back down to a baseline level is pretty much impossible until you've conditioned yourself to do that. And honestly, I've always been a big advocate of that. When I competed, you know, a lot of times I would go out on runs in the mornings before my event. You know, I would get a good sweat going and, you know, have a good workout. And a lot of times I got looked at weird, you know, what the heck is this guy doing? But, you know, over time, you know, and honestly, Cam Haynes is the one that finally brought attention to, you know, the slogan I love is train hard, hunt easy. I mean, you know, I've seen him use that, and I thought, man, I wish I would have thought of that, because that's 100% right. Like, you wanna practice how you play, and then come game day, the playing's easy. You know, people say, well, you know, how do I get better at tournaments? I always feel so nervous. You have to condition yourself in harder situations than the tournament, to where the tournament feels easy. And a lot of times that's just from being in enough tournaments to where they're all hard. And eventually you break through and you win one, or you have a PR in one, and then all of a sudden you realize, like, oh, that wasn't that bad. You know, maybe it's me that's been, you know, restricting this thing the whole time. So from a conditioning point of view, I've always been a huge advocate. For me personally, I'm a little bit too big to pound miles running. Rucking, I think, is awesome, because, you know, if you put weight on your back and you're, you know, charging your legs up with blood, you can get winded kind of quick. But for me, like, my overall favorite is a bike. You know, if I get on a bike, I can, you know, ride hard on that thing, get my heart rate up, and then really focus on how fast can I get it down, and monitoring that. And that was one thing as a competitor that I did a lot. If I was competing with people I knew was out of shape, I would push that, how fast can I get to that target and get an arrow off to where I'm managing myself, and I'm feeling where I'm at, but I feel like they're not going to be coming down from that yet. They're going to have to force themselves to shoot an arrow where, just from their heart rate point of view, it's almost like I've forced this fight or flight thing. So being able to deal with that as a hunter is imperative. And if these events like the TAC, they show you really quick, like, I shouldn't be winded going from one target to a next target.
Right.
If I really had to get after it and do that on an elk, this would have been a bad situation.
Right.
And it doesn't take that much commitment. I tell people, tell yourself first, I'm going to work out for 10 minutes. I'm going to do, or maybe it's 5 minutes. I'm going to do 5 minutes on a bike. And then each week try to progress by 1 minute, and then by the time you're several weeks in, you're doing 20 minutes on a bike, going hard, and it'll make huge dividends to your hunting and your competition life.
You said getting on a bike for 5, maybe 10 minutes. You can even start with just a simple walk.
Yep.
Walk 5 minutes a day.
Yep.
Increase it. Walk. Here it is. We're up in the Midwest, and we got winter, so it's going to be cold. Okay, go to a mall and walk the mall once.
Get out and walk in some snow. That
For hunters,
rucking in snow is really tough.
Right, exactly.
I do that as well. But just try to always set a goal that makes one step of progression. And like you said, if you're like, I just need to walk. Maybe it's I'm going to walk a mile. Well, at least when you walk a mile, just see how long that took you, and the next time walk a mile again, but try to beat it by a minute.
There you go.
Try to beat it by
goals.
60 seconds. At least beat it by a second.
attainable goals.
Yeah, and those small steps are always the ones that reach the end goal. And if you're good at goal setting, you're gonna set small goals that continually progress to a greater goal.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you what, I know you're a busy man. We're going to let you go. John,
Thanks a lot, dude.
thank you. Welcome to the team.
Thanks.
Yeah.
2 questions I got before you leave.
Okay.
One, will they have that in a left-handed model?
Sure hope so.
Okay.
There's like 2 of you out there.
And anybody else that's listening to our podcast or hears about this, where can they find out more information about you yourself?
For Instagram, go to Nock on TV, Nockon TV. YouTube, go to Nock on Archery, or you can go to knockonarchery.com on the website, and you should be able to kind of tie into everything from there. So
There you go.
Facebook is Nock on TV as well.
All right. Well, there you go. Straight from John Dudley himself. Some great stuff, some great content. Get out there, check it out, and we'll bring you more here from ATA 2020.